We're here for another true crime documentary. This time we are covering the fall of Diddy. So this episode has technically 5 episodes, but it's kind of really four because the last one was not much to it to really discuss in same way as the others. So this is going to be split just down the middle. The fifth one will be a part of the last episode. So this is going to be episode 1 and 2, and then the next weeks will be 3, 4, and a little bit of 5. So that's how we're splitting this. So just before we hop into this, just a blanket trigger warning for and I may not remember to do this at the top of the next episode, but just trigger warning for everything that's about to happen. Physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, coercion, it's just all of it. So, and again, just as a reminder, if you want to hear more of a conversational take on this, this was discussed when it first came out a few months ago on my other podcast, Next Take Podcast, with my co-host or co-podcast host. Yeah. Anyways, I will link in the show notes to that episode. So if you want to listen to that, if you want to wait to the very end, you can do that. But of course, we kind of go point by point in order. So if you want to listen to this, the first 2 episodes, and then go and listen to that and go to where the points are and stop at whatever, we'll do that. So yeah, let's get into it. Episode 1. So we first hear from this woman named Mila Morales, who was doing a photo shoot of Cassie. Um, she says that Diddy comes storming in afterwards, kind of saying, "Where is she?" Asking where Cassie is. And she could feel like something is going on, that something is off. So she ends up actually packing Cassie's stuff to basically get her to safety. And then in walks Cassie, bruised. Yeah, just bruised up by this fucker. They leave, and she's trying to get Cassie to go to the hospital. Or actually, no, I don't think she's necessarily going to get her to the hospital, but kind of realizing we can't go to the hospital because he is who he is. And there's more to it too. We'll get to it towards more in the end, or probably the next episode, really. Um, so they realize they can't do that. They can't go to the police. She says, "You're afraid of him. He's just too powerful." So she ends up having to call a friend who is a doctor and says, "Please help Cassie. Make sure she's okay." So at least like you can kind of do it off the books. But she says it clearly, just with Cassie's demeanor, was not the first time that this has clearly happened. And she says this was in 2010. So everything that's to come with Cassie that we discover later on is years later. So that's where that is. That's how this starts. So 2023, we're hearing about the allegations. Cassie's coming forward was the turning point for Diddy's, well, downfall. Diddy talks about, the Black excellence, um, and how, like, obviously important that is. Black excellence is important. But look at what he has done to set back Black excellence. Y- you've sent us back, set us back as a culture. Um, and that's angering. That's another thing to be angry at. So we have Danielle Smith. She says that she was the first woman editor of Vibe magazine. And she said that she's known Diddy for the entirety, pretty much, of her career. She says it was impossible to work with him, though. She explains in 1997, she was doing a cover shoot with him. he's going to be part of the December January cover. And she explained that this was like the angel wings or the devil, like, who you getting? Um, and she explains to us that he wanted to see the end result before it was going to be published. But she tells us that, per the policy of the magazine, no one gets to see the end result. It is what it is. So because of that, she refused to show him the cover. And instead of him being like, well, that's the policy, I mean, again, I'm going to give him this. You might get a little irritated being like, well, why can't I see it? But at the end of the day, if it's policy, it's policy. There's nothing you can do about it. But this man thinks he's entitled to everything. He gets what he wants. No one tells him no. So his response back to her when she refuses is, I will see you dead in a trunk. The fuck? Over a cover? You think they're really truly gonna make you look bad? You are who you are. You are Puff Daddy. Cause okay, this is 97. You are Puff fucking Daddy, and they think they're gonna make you look bad. The fuck? And your thought process with this is, I'm gonna see you dead in a trunk. You're fucking insane. Let's be real. She said, you better take that back. His response, I ain't taking a shit back. Can't take your face back. But anyways, here we are. She calls her lawyer, and her lawyer basically tells him, you better fax an apology to her, or, So within the 2 hours, he did exactly that. He faxed over the apology. What she didn't know was that he actually had come to her office with about two tough guys. Like, he's gonna rough her up. Like, he's actually going to come through with his promise of, I'm gonna see you dead in a trunk. Really. Her company, I guess, obviously caught wind of this and got her out of the building for her safety because they don't know what he's gonna do. And she says, I actually don't remember any of this. I'm only telling this because people have told her this, but she actually herself has no recollection that this even actually happened. So she says, like, to this day, she blocks it. That's clearly her brain trying to protect her from what happened. All right, so let's take a little trip in time and I guess learn about where he comes from. So we learn that he was born in Harlem to Janice and Melvin Combs. We hear that his dad actually passed away when he was a toddler. More on that later. They say it was clear that he wanted that opportunity to know him. Obviously, I think if any child loses their parent, and especially at a young age, you have this mystery of who is that person? Who is the other half of me? So I can feel bad for him as a child losing his father, but that's about as far as it goes. Or just feeling bad for him as a child, but in generally speaking, because again, we'll get to that. But so I think that's a normal thing, obviously. We meet his friend, whose name is Tommy, I believe, who has been friends with him since he was a kid. He said that they lived 13 steps from each other. And he says, he dressed well. He was maybe a little bit of a pushover. Aren't we all as kids, really? And he was bullied. Again, we're all bullied. And we're kind of hearing a little bit about Janice, that his mother raised him to not be weak, which, okay, fine. However, she would tell him, if someone hits you, you better hit him back harder so he won't hit you back. Don't be coming home crying to me about someone hit you, basically. Now, here's the thing. I think as parents, we want to say that to our kids, right? We want to say if someone hits you, you hit them the fuck back. You make sure to stand up to lay hands. Don't be laying hands on my kid. And sometimes you, as a parent, want to lay hands on their kid, on that kid too, even though you know you can't do that because that means jail. And sometimes you want to lay hands on their parent because sometimes the parents won't do shit. But again, you don't want to go to jail. And I'm not a parent, no, but I hear a lot of things from like Letitia, for example, with her oldest child, some of the shit that's gone down. And I'm just like, they don't even know who they're messing with. Letitia ain't one to mess with, especially when it comes to her children. And and even me hearing how some of the things that her daughter has dealt with, I'm just like, I'm gonna fuck some shit up. So it's normal to tell your child that. But this wasn't that. This was literally her saying, I don't want to hear you bitch and moan about these things. You're going to have to deal with that shit on your own. Don't be coming home to me bitching and moaning about it because I don't want to fucking hear it. That's what it sounds like to me. And that's not good. That's not good. Um, so, and again, as a child, I've never been told to lay hands on anybody. Have I though? Listen, and this is a bad example. I shouldn't talk about this, but I'm gonna talk about this because we're all adults here. We know what we should and shouldn't do. So I was getting bullied in school. We all kind of get bullied in school. I was getting bullied in school, and they were like a year younger than me, I think, but they were just relentless. These stupid kids were just relentless, and they wouldn't stop. And I would tell them stop, or I would walk away from them, or whatever. None of that shit was working. So the point where I'm like, you know what? I literally bitch slapped one of them in the face. You wanna know something? Did they bully me after that? No. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Because I'm like, listen, don't start with me. So I'm a bitch slap one of you, and one of you is gonna stop. Or all of you are gonna stop, and they did. So that worked. I did get suspended for a day, but it was such an unusual thing for me because I usually was not that kid that would cause drama like that. It was the only time I was ever suspended. But listen, it had to be done. Okay. It had to. But I also didn't have a parent that told me that I can't come to them and talk to them about things. Never. Anyway, moving on past that. So his friend says that basically this idea would be drilled into him. So he had to be the best. You have to be the best. There's nothing else you can be but the best. We learn about his time now at Howard University. Now, he never graduates from Howard University. He only spends a couple of years, I think, at Howard. We meet someone who is anonymous. We don't know her name. We don't know what she looks like. In 1988, she says that she was in her dorm room and she heard someone yelling and screaming. So I think she had a roommate. They both look out the window and they see that it's him, it's Diddy. He was screaming, come downstairs, come downstairs. He had his belt off and he was like whipping it against the wall. Like there's no one there but his damn self and the wind. And this man is still whipping out his belt and whipping against the wall. Like, what do you do with that? Did no one see him? When the woman that he was calling after actually comes downstairs, which is like, I can't even imagine the journey down there, knowing that this man is most likely going to beat the fuck out of you. Like, I can't imagine that. And she comes down. They say they can see that she's very timid, and he's just hitting her with the belt. This woman and her roomie are seeing this, and they're yelling at him to stop. Like, stop beating her. And he actually stops in the middle of it and to yell back at them to mind your fucking business. Yo, the business is no longer being minded when you're out here acting like a damn fucking hooligan asking for the fucking attention. Your business is not my business now, motherfucker. You know what I mean? So they say that she was 18. She says, like, the person who's anonymous, she was 18 at the time when she saw this. And again, let's remind everybody, this was in 1988. This is before he is who he is. Long before he is who he is. So she says, maybe we could have stopped it. Maybe he would have also gone after them, though. Maybe we could have stopped it. Maybe we could have called the police. Call our dorm mother to come and get involved. But she also says this part, and this part gets to me the most. She says the front desk was just downstairs. They would have probably heard all of this. And no one did anything. They just let this poor girl get beat by this fucking asshole. And no one does a fucking thing about it. And this will be talked about again. I do advise, like, go listen to the discussion about it because it was a good discussion. But I remember saying in it that at this point, because we do talk about this, and I said, can you imagine what would have happened if they dealt with him then? Maybe that meant we wouldn't have had P. Diddy, Bad Boy Records, everything that comes with that. But I also remember saying, but that is a sacrifice that I would have been willing to make. Because what would I have known otherwise? You know what I mean? And I would forfeit that. And I hope anyone would have forfeit that to know that this girl would not have had to endure this ever again. Because this probably wasn't the first nor the last time that she had to deal with this from this person. Um, and he would have also had his shit come to him. Would have had his shit served to him, honestly. So I would have taken that, obviously. So, Howard just became a placeholder for him. He does get an honorary diploma. This was later on, even though he only did 2 years. So in the 80s, hip hop, as we know, is growing. Okay, it's becoming what it is. We learn about Uptown Records, which is, I've heard of Uptown Records. Diddy was actually there helping artists defining their sound. Uptown Records was the it record label at the time. We hear about a little person, I don't know if anyone's heard of her, Mary J. Blige. She was at Uptown Records, and they just didn't know what to do with her, they say. He, to hear someone literally say, we don't know what to do with Mary J. Blige, the fuck you say? What do you mean? She is who she is, but of course, this is the 80s. She's in the start of her career, like, just still figuring it out, okay, fine, but can you imagine if they never did figure her out? We wouldn't have Mary J. Blige. So, yeah, they didn't know what to do with her. So, this part, I didn't know. I didn't know this, and I don't want this to take away from my love of the song because, as I mentioned in the conversation episode that I did, this is one of my favorite Mary J. Blige songs. So you can't take this from me, okay? But Diddy ends up getting involved, and he's gives her basically like hip hop beats to sing under. And with that, real love, I'm searching for a real love. Someone to set my heart free, real love is born. And again, I'm just like, what? I didn't, I mean, oh, fuck. It sucks because it's like he is talented in his own right. And he gives songs like this. But the atrocities that this fucking man will go through throughout the rest of his career here is just it's baffling. But that's what he did. Um, so he was also doing party promotions. So he said, "Hey, let's do a celebrity basketball game with Heavy D at City College." Um, so this, celebrity basketball game was going to include the likes of Jodeci, Boys to Men, LL Cool J. I mean, if you came up with that lineup today, I'm like, I'm there. The fuck? What? Like, this is an incredible lineup alongside with Heavy D. Fuck P. Diddy, but Heavy D, may he rest. Like, you know what I mean? So we started hearing from this guy. Hearing about Dirk, who wanted to go to this basketball game. He was actually dating Misa. Um, he was dating Misa's friend named Sonia, I believe. And Misa, we'll hear more about her a little later, but she was dating P. Diddy at the time. So on the day of the event, Sonia actually was planning not to go. She didn't want to go. But Misa calls her and basically tells her, "Oh, well, Diddy has a ticket for you, so you should come." The promotions for this event was huge. Like, it was being advertised everywhere. It was massive. Probably over its bridges. Let's be real. So they were selling tickets at the door, on top of also selling tickets before this. But there were a bunch of people still waiting for a ticket. Or yeah, probably still waiting to enter the venue, but the bouncers ended up saying no one else is getting in because they are at capacity. No one else can fit. So what ends up happening? People obviously upset because some of these people have actually paid for money to be here. They stampede into this gym. They're breaking down the doors. People rush down the steps against the doors. The problem is that the doors can only open one way. So the people are up against the door but can't open the door. Um, Sonia, apparently her face was into the person's back ahead of her. So we're literally, when you say packed in like sardines, oh, this was packed in like sardines. So they had to get people into the gym through this one door. Again, I say doors, but there was really only one door. We had people with broken bones. People weren't breathing. Meanwhile, Diddy, they said that he was very stressed. It seems like he's walking around quite aimlessly, but I think he really just was overwhelmed in this moment. So he's actually going around to people doing CPR. Sonia was actually one of the people he tried to resuscitate. We'll get to that in a second. Dirk, when they tried CPR on him, I didn't even know this could happen. So just trigger warning for this is bad. I just never knew this could happen. So they said that when they tried to do CPR on him, oxygen wasn't actually getting to his brain. His chest was going down, not up, but down. So unfortunately, he passes away. Sonia had also died as well. When her brother had to identify her, they basically took a picture of her body and you could see that there was a boot mark on her face. Like, I just can't even imagine. Diddy and Heavy D push the blame on everyone else but themselves. And the thing is, like, again, everyone could think a little differently about this situation, but first of all, I never heard about this. I did not know this happened. Um, but Are they responsible in the sense of they didn't advertise things in the right way? Absolutely. But I don't think anything was done really maliciously. I think they were both really over their heads about this. No one knew what the fuck they were doing. And then unfortunately, because of negligence, people lost their lives. So, um, they did not do enough to protect the people who were there. Lawsuits end up popping up that would take years to settle. So, yeah, all in all, 9 people, I believe, passed um that day. So I'm just gonna say their names, and I'm also gonna say their ages because that part's important as well. So we have Jabil Rainey, he was 15 years old. We have Leonard Nelson Jr., he was 17 years old. Letitia Hurd, she was 19. Dirk Swain, he was 20 years old. Don McCain, 20 years old. Yul Dargan, 24 years old. Charisse Ann Noel, she was 26 years old. Darren Brown, he was 28 years old. And then Sonia Williams, she was 20 years old. So they say that Diddy ended up getting too big for Uptown Records. So they not say, you know what? I think that maybe you could go off and do something better just because I think like you're too much for us. No, they fired him. So then he ends up having a meeting with none other than Clive Davis himself. And from there, he got his own record label, Bad Boy Records. I did not know that Clive Davis was at all involved in him getting his record label. I had no clue. That was news to me. So at this point, he's in his early 20s, which was unusual for someone in their early 20s having their own record label. So again, that is a great achievement. But it's with that and everything fucking else, are just like, gee, like this man, this man is, it's angering to say the least. So 1994 was the year for Bad Boy. There was just so much good music-wise coming out of this. This is you had Craig Mack with Flavor in Your Ear, which I'm sorry guys, I did not know the song. I know the beat, but I didn't know the song. Then you had Biggie, Big Papa, and with him you had Juicy. Diddy says, let's elevate the culture. But really, it was not so much to elevate the culture, but to elevate him. That's the biggest thing. Because again, especially with Biggie, he was in all the songs. He was in all the videos. And he was also in all of the concerts. So it was, I gotta put my face a part of this, which again, sure. But it's like, you're supposed to be a record label producer. Sure, you can do the Timbaland thing and be in all the songs and, hey, you know what I mean? But it's just like, I don't know. Now, anyways, let's move on. So now comes the intercoastal battles, the East Coast, West Coast wars. You got Suge Knight with Death Row Records. We have Diddy over here with Bad Boy. And let's face the fact, Suge Knight is scary. Suge Knight is, I respect him. I just don't want him listening to this. He's not listening to this. But I also want to listen to this being like, huh? No. Anyways, Diddy, they said he looked damn cuddly in comparison to Suge Knight. True. And of course, the people who represented the East Coast, West Coast was Biggie and Tupac, as we know. What we didn't know, which I think they definitely heard about this, but they said what we didn't know was that Death Row Records was actually trying to invade the East Coast with Death Row East. The feud was really, really bad at that time. And it's funny because I actually had a conversation with, who was I speaking with? Um, hmm, it might have been the conversation, episode, but, I remember saying, "Who gives a fuck if Death Row Records is trying to create an East division? Fucking Bad Boy, go do the same. Go and invade the West Coast and make a West Coast division of Bad Boy Records." Like, who gives a flying fuck? Because again, as we said, like, 'cause this was big. This was cultural. This will always be talked about for years and years to come. However, as the consumer, we don't care. We just want to consume. We don't give a shit. Like, shit went too far. Shit went too far, and we lost two great rappers because of it. Like, it shit just went too far. Anyway, we hear from someone named Dwight or Dwight. He sees these Death Row East t-shirts and he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, oh, cool, like whatever. So he wears it, whatever. He's at the club and, it is what it is. And an hour later, he comes out of the club still wearing the shirts. He's in his Jeep and here comes Diddy in his car and he pulls up on the passenger side of the vehicle and he kind of says to him, um, what's up, bitch? The fuck? And he says, like, he just tried to de-escalate. He didn't want to be in a fight with him at all. Like, he didn't want to be about this. But Diddy just kept calling him a bitch. And I'm like, listen, the fuck? Then they're in a fucking car chase. Diddy's car forces him into an island. And he's like, oh my God, I'm going to get out of a car accident. And then there's a gun. He didn't know who had it, whose gun, who was holding it. He didn't know that detail. He said he's driving on one-way streets, sidewalks. He's basically just trying to get away, obviously. Um, and he was able to get away, so that's good. Obviously, because he's here talking to us, but he was able to get away. But yeah, it's unnecessary. Like I said, who gives a shit? That's episode 1.